Welcome to Becoming Fearless, the personal growth podcast for you if you are ready to overcome fear and step into your greatness. Our purpose is to help you overcome your limits, have loads of fun along the way, unlocking your fullest potential in life, business, health and relationships every single day. I'm your host, Charlotte Carter, a high-performance coach and entrepreneur with over 20 years' experience. I've supported many highly driven, talented people like you who dream big and are ready to take action to overcome what's holding them back. Each week, my guests and I will be sharing hacks and habits on how to build self-belief, courage and confidence to master your mindset and navigate your emotions so that you can reach your human potential in a way that feels light, fun and easeful and helps you become fearless. Let's go. Hello and welcome to another episode of Becoming Fearless. This is a guest episode for you all, and I am absolutely delighted to bring in one of my really special dear friends, if I'm truly honest. This lady I probably met maybe 3 or 4 years ago in the online space, and we went over on this organised trip with some other entrepreneurs to Barcelona for a couple of days. That was absolutely awesome on so many levels. There were 27 women, some I knew, some I didn't. It was definitely like an intuitive nudge, let's just go for it, and it was just great fun. And Denise played a part in that journey, and we have stayed great friends ever since. So Denise, would you like to introduce yourself to my listeners, a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Absolutely. So Denise Matthews, our business is called Elevate Career Coaching, and I come to this business with 35 years of experience in talent acquisition, recruitment, and I've also been an executive coach since 2006, something like that, often helping the people I've placed into senior roles, primarily help with people in senior positions and their growth. Before that, I worked in retail. I was incredibly lucky to be part of the development team for Next Directory. I was the ops manager on the very first launch, which was a brilliant learning journey. And obviously working for a big entrepreneur in George Davis. So that's helped me with lots of other entrepreneurs along the way on my journey. But now I just love to help people help them find the right place. It could be in the same organisation where they are, but they want to grow, or it could be it's time to move on, or it could be an entrepreneur who is struggling with some aspects of their confidence or their team management. So I'm really lucky. I've got a cornucopia of things that I enjoy helping people with.
And let's go back to this whole you being that leader in the Next Directory. Let's take people on a journey then, because when was that, Denise? How long ago was that, and what did that entail? Because I remember you telling me about this in Barcelona, and I was just like, what? Trying to get my head on what life was like then and what it was like and where it is now is just phenomenal. So can you just share a light on that part of your life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I joined Next. I was actually working at John Lewis when Next burst onto the scene, and I joined them when they only had 12 stores, and they'd just changed over from being an umbrella shop. And George Davis had come from the party selling world with Pippa D. So his approach was incredibly different to any other retailer I'd ever worked with. And he was a really hands-on CEO. He got so involved. And so I worked for him in the Bristol store, and I did that because I was at John Lewis and I met my husband there, and we decided we didn't want to work in the same place, just not a healthy way to work. And so this shop had popped up in Bath. I've been to have a look. It had no stock on the shelves because it was so successful. It was selling out. And so when they opened in Bristol Clifton, I applied to be the store manager there. And George used to come and chat with us on the shop floor. He'd take us around the stock room and say, why is that not selling? Why is the warehouse full of that? And various things. He'd really involved people. I learned so much from him. And then my husband got promoted and we moved to London, and I got the opportunity to go to London with Next and worked in a couple of big stores, opened Next Knightsbridge, which was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. and recruited, 20 people into that store. And all 20 of those people have got great jobs now. They're all senior in their organisations. They're all doing things. It was just a fabulous time. And then I went off on maternity leave. And while I was on mat leave, George rang me when my eldest daughter was 7 weeks old and said, I've got a job for you. I need you to come back. And I was like, I've got a baby and it's 7 weeks old. And he's like, yeah, well, I need you to come back. You can make that work. I'm like, I live in Welwyn Garden City and head office is in Leicester. So I ring my mum who lives in Birmingham. And she meets me in head office and takes the baby for the day. And George says, I'd like you to come and be the general manager on Next Directory. Most women know that when you're in that stage post-pregnancy, moving into a big job as a female going back to work, that is so full of trauma in itself. It's quite a thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, the ideas for Directory were phenomenal. It was the market leader and probably still is in terms of online shopping and how it's progressed. His ideas were phenomenal. And I just got a nanny and got on with it really, and was very supported by my family, as I always am. And so I drove up and down to Leicester every day, through thick and thin of the weather, which was a bit nuts really when I think about it. But anyway, it was a great team. And 7 weeks before launch, we were all sitting in the boardroom. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and George said, I've had an idea. And everyone shrank in their chairs because when George had an idea, you knew that was probably going to be quite challenging. And he said, this idea of delivering products in 7 to 14 days, it's ridiculous. I want to do it in 48 hours. And he said, I don't know how we're going to do it. We're 7 weeks away from print, but we're going to print it. And we had no idea at that point how we were going to print it. What he had done, he's done some brilliant work on strengths, colours, all that sort of thing that we'd done. And my role was to lead the customer contact centre. So I worked with one of the mail order businesses in the group and set up the customer contact centre. And we'd done some really fabulous stuff there. So he did know his people and he knew what we were capable of. And he looked around the room and he looked at me, he said, Denise, that can be your project. I was like, yeah, okay, I haven't got a clue. But of course, like all things, you just do a Brené Brown and you go off to Rumble and work out what you can do. And I was really fortunate. I'd been in stores for a long time with the group. And by now it was 1987, late 87, and we were launching in the new year. And I just reached out to everybody in retail and said, guys, can we do it through stores? Can we do stores pickup? How can we do it? And of course, everyone loved it because it was such an energised business, Charlotte. Everyone in there was always up for something new, really. It was just the way, the culture he created. He put a lot of trust in people, what he saw as their abilities, and he just let us get on with it. And sometimes we failed and he just picked us up, kicked us into touch, and then we went off again. That was it, really. We set up this 48-hour delivery with a sort of a quasi courier type service, and shops dealt with it all. And we ran that for about 12 months. And so that was a really phenomenal achievement. It had lots of challenges culturally. The merging with another mail order business was really difficult. I had a young baby. So eventually I just thought, well, I need to step back from this. But I had great fun. And I've still got my first directory all signed with all the swatches and everything in. And in fact, some of the people of that time are still my greatest friends and colleagues today, because that's the way life works out, isn't it?
And that's one thing that I want to touch on in this episode with people. But he must have, or that whole experience must have given you so much foundation, so much growth, so much appreciation for the things that you wanted in life as you moved into the next part of your career and into coaching and everything in terms of career succession. And I know something else that we have spoke about is that these people that you help and have helped decades ago, they still come to you now, Denise. So that is like a massive testament to who you are as a coach and who you are as a mentor, but also who you are as a person, because people keep coming back to you and I know you've told me about many people that have, you've seen them through many different roles, and it must be so rewarding. Should we talk a little bit about that? Should we talk a little bit about when you first went into that and what you did first of all and kind of your journey then?
Yeah. So I was I'd gone back into retail after the birth of my first daughter, and I went back to being an area manager and all those things that you do. And my retail director from Next had actually moved into recruitment, and so when she decided that she was going to set up her own recruitment business specifically for retail. And so she reached out to me and said, I need an ops manager. She hadn't got any team, we hadn't got premises or anything. And we had great fun. We set up a business called Carver Consultants. And Jane actually is godmother to one of my daughters. So I was really lucky with that relationship. And we went and found premises. We opened premises in number 1 Harley Street. I mean, what an address. And we set up as a retail consultancy. And she was a phenomenal recruiter. She was one of those people that just got client engagement. She'd been a retail director, so she had some great skills anyway.
Yeah.
People skills were good, but she was also really good at teaching all of us how to optimize what we had and to learn from her. It was a really good environment. And she built a great business. And so, we started with the graduate recruitment. And then over the years moved into more senior roles. And I found that I really loved doing retained recruitment where, we weren't in a great big pond fighting for great candidates. You were able to build good relationships with clients, good relationships with candidates, and then help them when they got into their positions. And truly, some of those people are still in my world today, and I'm so blessed with that, really. So did that for a number of years, and then Jane actually sold the business and emigrated, and so I went to work with other recruiters, and that was great. But then one day I was having a cup of coffee with a colleague, and she said, we could do this, and I went, really? And she went, yeah. She said, you don't need a lot to be a good recruiter. And so we set up a business that went on for 12 years, very much in retail recruitment. And I loved what I called the old-fashioned way of, as it is now, because we do client acquisition so differently in this market. But in those days it was literally about going out, building relationships, going to awards dinners, turning up for a cup of coffee and just building slowly relationships. And also, we had a good old Rolodex going, because obviously there were no CRM systems or anything like that. I'm going back to 1989, and actually building relationships on paper and in person. And I was one of those daft people who thought that recruitment online would never take off. I just couldn't see how it could ever take over from the joy of personal relationships, and I still don't like it. But I accept it, and I know it is the way forward. But maybe if I'd seen that then, I might be retired properly now and wealthy. Instead of me poo-pooing this ridiculous idea that, I really thought it was crazy. And that was very short-sighted to me with what's come out, and that's one of my learns. But but what we did in that business, it was called the One Consultancy, was that we had some great clients, and we did a lot of restructuring work as well, because my business partner had a very, very good HR background. And so we realised that when you're headhunting, one of the challenges is that you can often disturb people's equilibrium because they weren't looking for a job.
Yeah.
And this was true headhunting. This wasn't like agency headhunting. This was proper headhunting of, going after people that were the best in their game in the market and finding them the needle in the haystack. But then sometimes they didn't get the job, or they got the job and they were struggling those first, 90 days or whatever. And so we decided to train as coaches. That was in 2006. And so we both became ILM coaches at that point. And so it meant that we never sort of dropped a good candidate who wanted to be helped and supported. You just kept that journey going. And that gave us a USP. But it was also a really good model. It was a really good model for them. And that's why, some of those relationships have stayed on, really. And I've always loved, and I really do love recruitment. I don't do recruitment anymore. I do careers, but with recruitment, my big joy came from meeting a client and taking a brief, finding out what they thought they needed, and then challenging them to find out what they exactly do need. It's like any great consultant does.
Yeah.
And then finding the candidates to match, and like me being the pivot on the seesaw in the middle. So the seesaw has to be completely flat with the candidate and the client getting exactly what they need, and you as the pivot knowing what that is, so that when the placement happens, no one falls off. Because if you've done a good job and got that pivot right, that will go on to be a good long-term rewarding relationship. And I think that was one of my strengths, really, and still continues to be. I work with recruitment businesses now, and that's, I'm still as a consultant, and that's very much my model. So I just love that. And when you meet people in a lift, 5 years down the line, they're still having a great time, or, people reach out and just want to stay in touch, and sometimes just, I'm at this point and I'm not sure what to do. I just love those conversations. It's just great fun.
You always have. And I just want to talk about that pivot role, because it is a massive strength of yours. And I imagine there are some people listening thinking, and I was listening thinking, there's no way I would get any enjoyment out of trying to match those two elements of two different people with two different angles and perspectives, one being the client and one being the one being the employer and one being the employee. And I think that would generate a lot of fear for people. What do you think is your biggest strength when you're in that pivot role, or when you're in recruitment, or more so what you do now? What do you think do you feel like you have extra sensory stuff that goes on so you can see and feel? And I know what I think.
Well, I think the very thing that's my strength can also be my downfall, because I'm brutally honest. Authenticity and values are, they're right at the core of everything I do. And so whereas sometimes I could have made a placement, but I wouldn't, because the match just wasn't right on those. And I think, I was with a client yesterday, a careers client, and we were talking. It was her final session, and we were talking about what do the next 5 years look like, and is it going to be her name incorporated in 5 years' time, or is she going to be in a much bigger job in a corporate organisation? And we were doing that model and how that works. What are the ingredients into making those decisions, and I think about that a lot for the people I'm working with. I don't just rock up and think, oh, well, here's a placement, whoopee, out goes the invoice. It would make me really anxious if I thought that someone was going to a job where they weren't going to have a great time, or whether a client was going to get someone. And of course, we make mistakes. We're human. Sometimes we can get it wrong, but it's not very often. I truthfully say I can, not even one hand in 30 odd years of doing that. And where it has gone wrong, you beat yourself up, so much trying to work out why that happened. And often it's a circumstance change or a leadership change in an organisation that no one could foresee. So there are so many things. A business gets sold, so there are things you can't cover. But for me, it's that honesty with myself and with the people I'm working with. that that's what I think. What do you think?
I think I love that answer. I think one of the superpowers, one of the conversations that you and I have, it's about depth of understanding of people. So you will invest time, or I imagine, so I haven't been one of your clients, so you invest a lot of time in understanding that person, understanding their strengths, their values to a real depth. What makes them tick, what brings them joy, what brings them happiness, what's their purpose, all of those kind of things. The work that I do in this different guise. So the depth of the things that you do and the things that you can then see and then match up will be one of your superpowers for certain in that role. So let's talk about moving to the online space, because I know this has been a bit of a ride, a bit of a roller coaster, because you are so people-led and so in-person connection-led, that the online world, with everything, with the tech, with the people, with trying to figure certain groups out and not, and all of those kind of things that everybody's had to deal with when they've built a business online. Let's talk about that, because there will be some people that are listening that would like to change their career and become an entrepreneur, and this bit may be scaring them or invoking fear in them, or they want to make another level in the entrepreneurial world, and the online space is bringing all sorts of confusion to them.
Yeah, it has. I think my when we went online, which I've never been. So let's just move that back. So as far as systems and tech are concerned, I've always had a really clear vision of what I wanted out of it, but I've never been very interested in how we got there. So I was really fortunate as an entrepreneur, because I have always had a team. And so I'm an ideas person. I'm one of those people that will, bounce into the room and say, I've had this idea, or go away and find out what we need to know and bring it back, and then I'll make a decision, and then you can do it. And then I've done that, opening stores, everything. I've always done it that way. And actually it's worked really well in the main, because I've always had people around me that I've hired that I have really valued and trusted. So I think really I'm very lucky with that. And I know I'm lucky with that now, even more so. So when the lockdown came along, I was actually retired. And I was helping my daughter in her wedding cake business. And I wasn't really doing anything. I'd had a really serious back operation and decided that, this is it. This was my second retirement, in fact. And that was what I was going to do. And then comes lockdown, and I was bored stupid. I mean, it's only so much gardening and talking to your husband you can do, isn't there? Let's face it. And then I started having phone calls with a few people and saying, I don't know what to do. I'm really worried about this. And so I started giving out, the free advice and, have you tried this? What about that? And my husband had me one day and he sort of said, you get paid for that. And of course that just started that little, bumble in my head of, I could get paid for doing something I really, really like. So because we had that time on our hands, and one of my friends in the wedding cake business, which is where my daughter has hers, was an affiliate for a program that she was selling, which is a very well-known one-to-many program. And I went and joined that and learned how to do online. I had an idea that my career's experience could translate, but I didn't know how. So I did that, and then I did find that I immediately felt lonely. That's what I would say, that loneliness. So my answer to that was start to join lots of Facebook groups and $27 courses and anything else that I could get my hands on, where I would get to meet and talk to other people and get into chat rooms. And I did a lot, quizzes. I mean, I just did everything really. My mum died in the middle of it all in 2020, 2019, not COVID, but she did. And that was a real, a bit of a blocker, and held me up on my one-to-many course, and I think slowed me down a little bit. But by then decided that my topic for my one-to-many solution was going to be career coaching. And I got this idea of how I could use all the knowledge of, almost 30 years and put it into an online course. And so I started to work on that. And then I thought, I need to be seen as the expert in the room for this. So I then signed up. And I know you'll laugh because I'm always signing up for courses, as you know. And so I then signed up for a course on becoming a licensed career coach. And that was a brilliant course for me. It gave me lots of affirmation and validation about what I thought I could do. Great group of people, really good community, still part of it today. And my license is for a business that's been going for a long time. So I know that's valuable and that I'm getting good supervision with that, which is also, I think, as a coach, just so important, and not enough people do it. So those things all helped. But then you have to grow the audience. And that is where, I found it so difficult. And I say to anybody moving into this world, don't believe anyone that says that the audience growth can come easily by buying this course or ticking that box or whatever. It just doesn't, because it won't be the right audience. And I grew an audience, but it wasn't the right audience for what I wanted. And so I've had to go through that learning journey at quite a late stage in my career whilst feeling lonely. So those are really what the challenges have been. And the tech, I found it very, very difficult because I've never liked it anyway. I'm ADHD. It's never going to fire me up. The people fire me up, not tech. So I've tried to surround myself with people that can help. And I've met some amazing people online. The trip to Barcelona for me was a real step into the dark. I didn't know anybody up to 27 and came back with some great friends, yourself and the other two are, Vicky and Louise are just blooming fabulous. I'm so lucky to have you all in my circle of friends and support, and I've learnt loads. But that was a real step out and quite uncomfortable because you might think I'm an extrovert, but I'm an introverted extrovert. So it wasn't that easy.
No.
But I think that what I would say is that find your tribe. That is the most important thing that you can do as an entrepreneur, however you're doing it, whatever it is, you need a tribe.
And I think to find your tribe, you've got to know yourself, haven't you? I think this is sometimes part of the work. Some people go out seeking and bouncing around like you and I have spoke about, going into all different things, thinking that they're going to be people, they're going to be your people, they're going to be your people. And FOMO kicks in and a shiny object kicks in and all of those kind of things. But ultimately, when you know yourself and you know what's you offer, then you start to attract people in that actually match your values or match your strengths or match your vision. And it becomes a whole lighter experience for people. But it is definitely a journey of finding yourself within that space.
Yeah. I mean, and that's obviously some of the work that I've done with you and Anne-Louise, which was quite a pivot point for me. It was, just thinking about me, but in a room of people that all had similar values and, all got different journeys and destinations and different levels, but it didn't actually matter because the work that we did was about me and some realizations that I needed to come to. And, and it's like everything, isn't it? It's keeping it up afterwards. And I think that's the other thing, consistency is not a strength. It is for my clients. I'm as consistent as hell for my clients, but not for myself. So that's something else I've really had to continue to work on, continue to do it.
As we all do, I think. We all do.
Find that tribe, and your tribe needs to be a mixture of different types of people as well.
Mm-hmm.
They can't all be the same.
Yeah.
And as I move into this sort of, I haven't actually done my online course, my one-to-many course, but it is going out mid-October. That is it. It's,
happening.
Everything's in place. The wheels are in motion. I've got my tribe around me. I know what I'm doing. The course has been half written for 5 years. I mean, it is literally just a few weeks now to pull it all together and record it. But some of that is about confidence as well, is, well, who am I? Who am I to do this?
Yeah.
But actually, my tribe have convinced me that, do it.
Well, you're Denise, that's who you are, and that's why you're doing it. And, you love a deadline. You've got an imposed deadline that you've given yourself, which I think is great. And sometimes I think high performers and high achievers need this. When you first set up in business, the fact that there's no deadlines until you create them, it's very easy to move them. It's very easy to convince yourself that you weren't quite ready. It's very easy to buy something else because you think you need that before you can do the thing. But when you get to a place like Denise has, because we were talking pre-recording about making a decision that actually in these next 6 months, this is going to happen, I'm committed to it, everything changes because people's energy changes. They're not in that decision analysis paralysis piece, which is a horrible marshland that people can get into, that I've been in. It's not a nice place when you're indecisive about things. Whether you commit to things and then you can get your energy behind it and then build your momentum. Like Denise says, when you've got your tribe, they help you continue that momentum. You can find it yourself, but you need some people around you that are going to help you sustain it, continue in it, and allow you to keep going and build. So I'm really excited because Denise has made a commitment and it's going to happen. So tell me a little bit about the course.
So basically, it's going to be aimed at a slightly different level of people that I normally work with, because a lot of my work has predominantly been one-to-one. So it's almost back to my roots. It's, what I was doing when I first got into recruitment and working with, managers, senior leadership, but maybe not execs, directors, and people who've got enough momentum to do some work on their own, with a little bit of push and pull from someone there to support them and be in their corner. That person that helps you up the last part of the hill with their hand in the small of your back going, you can do this, I've got you, let's go. So there will be some opportunity to have some one-to-one in there, whether it's a Facebook group or a circle or something like that. I'm just trying to decide how to do that at the moment. But it'll be a self-study course. It will have lots of templates and everything in place. I've written a journal for taking yourself through a career change journey. So there'll be all of that in there. And it's going to be accessible price-wise. It's going to be very different to, working at that, let's say, that one-to-one intense senior level. I wanted something that was accessible, and something that my own family would have benefited from, when they were going through this point, really. So that's what it's going to be about. And I think I genuinely believe that if they do the work, and I will be dropping in along the way with all the reminders and things, that people can make that change, because the job market's quite tough. It's actually tougher at the more senior level, but my own expertise is very much in service-focused organisations, so retail, hospitality, recruitment, customer services, that type of thing, and even marketing. I'm really strong on marketing and HR. So people in those professions, there are opportunities out there. So it's just helping you find them, how to use the wonderful tool that is LinkedIn, because most of us only use about a tenth of it. And with over 1 billion people on it, and 95% of all recruiters and talent people using it as part of their sourcing, you can't afford to ignore it.
No.
And so that's something I do. And I do regular webinars and masterclasses and things like that all the way through. So if anyone's following me, they'll get that.
Brilliant. So if people want to get a hold of you, Denise has given me all the details. You can go and catch up with her and connect with her. And if you know that you want a space on this course, you've heard it here, it is coming out in October. It will be ready then. There's a big commitment live on the podcast then for people to get their hands on that and reach out to you. So the final question that I want to ask you, Denise, that I ask all of my guests, because we could keep talking, you and I, but let's wrap it up, is about a book that you have read that somewhere in your life has made a big impact in terms of how you've navigated fear or navigated change or helped you become the woman that you are.
So, I have a book delivered almost every week, because and I have now got some Audibles because I'm finding Audible brilliant in the car. But I still have to have the book because I listen to it on Audible, then I come back with the highlighter pen and do what I want to do to like cement it in my butterfly brain. But back in 2000, my coach at the time, he was a business coach, a fab gentleman called John Dalton, who I give a lot of credit to for where I am right now. Sat me down one day when I was having a wibble wobble and gave me a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and by Susan Jeffries. And most of us have probably had that book and got it tucked away somewhere in a cupboard. Mine is dog-eared, thumb through, highlighted to death, because on the days when you do wake up and you've got the early morning wobbles, or you're not sure why you're doing it, whether that's personal or business, I can literally dive into there and know a chapter that I can read that's going to help me. Okay, I'm feeling this, but, what the hell? Let's just get on with it.
Yeah.
And it takes me over. And that's like me having John Dalton's hand in the small of my back saying, come on, girl, you can do this.
So good.
And so that's one that's important to me. So there it is, very dog-eared.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for sharing everything that you have on this podcast. As always, I've adored listening to your stories and your journey and where you are now. And I love the fact that we've just put it on this podcast episode that the course is coming out. So I'm excited to see the progression for that. Thank you so much for your time. I've really appreciated chatting to you. And like I say, for people listening, all of the contact details to follow and connect with Denise will be underneath the show notes. So just go and reach out, and definitely reach out. She will have a call. She will talk with you about where you are, and she will give you honest opinions and real gems of information, I am sure.
Thank you, Charlotte, and thanks for the opportunity. And as always, it's been a lovely opportunity to chat.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. I hope that you're feeling energised, fearless, and inspired to take action today to stand in your greatness. I share even more tools and resources on my I Dare to Leap email newsletter. By signing up, you not only get early access to the I Dare to Leap products and services, but you also get brand new podcast episodes delivered straight to your inbox every Monday, meaning you'll never miss your weekly dose of becoming fearless energy. Sign up now at www.idaretoleap.com/newsletter or click the link in the show notes below.